they last century, in the 30s of last century, came to dig here in Megiddo, and they dig for some extensive period. Eventually it will be turned into a small museum. And one thing that I would like you to see is this, which symbolizes the wall and the gate into the city of Megiddo. And it is a replica of what we can see until today, still standing in situ in the north, in Dan. Yesterday we've been to Caesarea Philippi. 2 miles away from there, there's another source of the Jordan River, and right by it is that biblical town, starting as Laish or Laish, and then becoming the town of Dan. And that wall and that gate, made out of mud bricks, is still there, and it is about 4,000 years old. Everybody looks at this arch and says it's a Roman arch. The perfect arch. Everybody says it's a Roman arch. Allow me to laugh, because when Rome was not even a twinkle in the eyes of history, here in this country the Canaanites were building gates with an arch, which is still standing 4,000 years later. Through the Phoenicians, it moved westward to the shores of Sicily or the shores of Italy, passed to the Romans through the Etruscans who preceded the Romans. So a long, long time before the Romans were a twinkle in the eyes of history, people over here were using this element in building. And you do know, you build half, supporting it by some wooden structure, half over here, and then you put the keystone, which holds it. The two halves are leaning against the keystone, and this is probably the hardiest element in building, is an arch.
Did they use the keystones? I thought the Romans were the first to use them.
Come on.
Okay.
Come on.
They don't have a keystone here?
This is the keystone. Okay, give me a pen, I'll write. This is the keystone.
Okay.
This is the keystone, okay? The keystone will be... This is a piece of plastic, my dear. Okay, let the tall fellows come a little bit closer to me. Egypt. Turkey of today in ancient biblical times is the center of the Hittites. The Hittite Empire has disappeared already, crushed down in biblical times. And we do have here Cyprus of today. The Bible probably refers to it as Elisha or Elisha. And so there, in between the Euphrates and the Tigris, we have Babylonia to the south, Assyria to the north, and it is known as Mesopotamia. One more center over here and a crossroad known as Marie. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been talking about the Via Maris so many times, so let's see the course. Egypt, north, there's water here. And so along the northern Sinai, there's water in a few places along the way, along our coast. And somewhere it has to cross Mount Carmel, which is an offshoot to the main bodies of mountains, and you have to cross it. You cross it, and the entrance to that crossing is Megiddo. From here, Jezreel Valley, up Golan Heights, the way that we went, Damascus, and from here you have to cross the big Arabian desert until you reach the big bend of the Euphrates River and a place known as Marie. In Marie, which was a crossroad of ancient time, of the ancient world, they found, I think in the 30s of last century, big archives when on tablets made out of clay, on which is written in cuneiform, which was the lingua franca of ancient times. And those were, from this it shed a lot of light on the ancient world, and some of what we know from the Bible was corroborated by some of the findings here. Forget about it now. This is then the Via Maris, and when Abraham starts from here, from Ur, he goes following the water to Haran, where he lives most of his family, and following that came down over here. So this is the Fertile Crescent where there's water, but you can cross also through the big Arabian desert. And that's what made Damascus so important, and eventually Baghdad as well. Baghdad is only from the 9th, 10th centuries. Okay, so it's a latecomer, forget about it. Ladies and gentlemen, what do we have here is Megiddo, and so let's take a smaller map, a smaller section of the map and enlarge it. And here is Mount Carmel, south, the main body of mountains, Galilee, which we are leaving now. And you can see that it's also almost like a wheel, and all the roads pass through. We have the Via Maris, back and forth. We have that road that we will be taking this way. It's practically a road from the east going through the triangular valley known as the Valley of Jezreel and continuing further along the coast to Phoenicia, passing through here. And another road which is a local road and which would be probably one of the roads to be used by Jesus as he goes to Jerusalem on one of those holidays and pilgrimages. At least one time it is recorded that he meets a Samaritan lady in the town of Shechem, which later on will become known as Neapolis, and the Arabs, because they don't have P, change it to Nablus. Occasionally you might read about it in the modern headlines. So at that time, there are 3 roads to go down from the Galilee to Jerusalem. One is going this way, it's a longer way, and it is full with, it's not, there are some foreign elements over here, other people over here along the coast, and so generally Jewish pilgrims will tend not to go here. Some will go through the center of the mountains, but this is up and down, so the terrain is not the easiest. But not only that, in Second Temple period, who are the element here in Samaria, where once upon a time were the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, when they were exiled by the Assyrians, other elements were brought by the Assyrians over here. The outcome of that mixture would be the Samaritans. The Samaritans are closely related to us, mixture of remains of Ephraim and Manasseh, and other elements brought over here by the Assyrians, like 2 brothers, as happens many times in many families, unfortunately, and they don't see eye to eye. So it was, and it was not beyond a Samaritan to poison a Jew on his way to Jerusalem. So here is coming from the north, from the Galilee, a fellow that is recognized very quickly as a Jew. And he is asking that Samaritan, who easily can be recognized she's a Samaritan because she's dressed like one, give me some water. He must be crazy, she might be thinking, because doesn't he know that a Jew does not ask water from us, because there have been cases that we poison them, and well, apparently Jesus had a message to pass on at that moment when he is asking. Of course he knew the history, of course he knew that it could be dangerous, of course he knew that she's a Samaritan. Still he asked because he had a point that he wanted to be making. So at least one time we do know that he goes over here, but most of the times the pilgrims from the Galilee were coming through the Jordan Valley, the way that we will be coming to Jerusalem, because here is the safety all along the way of Jewish population, and so you have the right food and the security in your people, and you can rest. It is the easiest, and that will be indeed the way that we will be going to Jerusalem as well, through the Jordan Valley. So here is Megiddo. Everything is leading to Megiddo, and ladies and gentlemen, how do you call them? So let us start from top to bottom, and in the process, in a few places, like windows to the past, and in the process, touch base with all the layers, one city built on top of the other. But where to start? North, south, east, west, highest, lowest. Correctly, they decided to start digging facing east. because they figured out the pagans who were here first, this was the land of Canaan before it became the land of Israel, that they, the pagans who have been worshipping their gods of sun and moon, might have had built their temples to the east. They were taking a lottery. So let's see, press that, and come a little bit closer, because indeed, come. Because indeed over here they found two civilizations. One some 5,000 years old, when the shepherds gatherers or hunters gatherers started turning to be shepherds and farmers. Very simple, primitive shelters. But on top of it, they found remains of 3 and 4 foundations of 3 and 4 big temples. And the big question right away was it pagan? Was it maybe an Israelite temple? And the answer, I think, was clearly found by the white cheese that you see here. You see the white cheese with steps leading up. This was the Pablo on my altar on steps. That's what is written there. Why?
People
like
can
the
look
pagans.
up under.
Not exactly, so that you won't expose. From the time of Solomon, and the architect built over here 3 guard rooms, not 2, 3. Well, it was when we came to the land. Remember, we are just barbarians. We could inherit the towns with of warfare and siege technique from the Philistines, with whom he spent some time when he was running away from